Hi, good evening, everyone. I've just been given 10 minutes, so I'm going to make it as short and sweet. Also, I'm the last speaker, so I'm going to make it as brief and fun. To begin with, how many of us in this room here today use social media, Facebook, Instagram? Everyone? Every single hand up? Almost? Yeah. How many of us were checking on social media whilst these talks and panel discussions were on? No one's hands up. Secretly, you can put a few hands up. We all do that sometimes. And that's because I think social media has become and is integrated into who we are, who we become, and who we strive to be. And before I start this small interactive talk, I just want to explain to you the latest statistics that show that 90% of all of us, that's teenagers, young adults, and now they're saying 95, if not almost 100%, right, use or are on social media, right? 71% of us who use it actually believe and agree that it is important to take breaks because it's affecting their mental health. Imagine, 71% of us already know that. 41% of women feel the pressure to present themselves in a certain way, which leads to a lot of discord moving ahead in their lives. 70%, now this is interesting, 70% of teenagers check on social media several times a day, sometimes going into an average of, guess how many times a day? Anyone, a number, a random number? 500? That's, maybe there are some, but I think about the statistics show about 100 times a day, right? And 42% of teenagers clearly indicate how social media impacts their health, causes various disorders in mental health like depression, anxiety, body dysmorphism, OCD, etc. But unfortunately, a lot of kids today and teenagers are being cyberbullied. And last statistic that shows that 52% of us feel insecure about our bodies and our appearances or our lives because of social media, right? So as beautiful as social media is made out to be, and there are a lot of positives, we connect with people, we keep in touch with our loved ones, especially the ones who are not living with us or are far away or living in another country, which is all nice. So how does it affect or how does it impact mental health, right? So I've kind of broadly put it down into kind of 9 blocks. And I think the first one is behavioral. So what are those behavioral manifestations? And this is something we see amongst us every day. That's why I asked you all how many of us have checked, right? And it's so sad to see that you may be in a restaurant, you can see family members sitting together on a dining table, perhaps going out to celebrate something or just having a meal together. No one's looking at each other, no one's talking, there's no conversation, and they're all looking down, either scrolling or texting or messaging or, again, being on social media. When you're in a movie theater next time, just glance up and look around. Even whilst the movie's on, at least I've noticed this, you can see tons of blue lights on, the phone lights on. It's shocking because it could be an action thriller, it could be one of the best movies showing, and you'll have blue lights all around the theater with people actually on social media scrolling or responding or replying. So what happens with these behaviors? And the sad part is that social media, studies, brain research, neurochemical and neurophysiological aspects have actually put this akin to being like a drug. It's addictive. When you look at behavioral changes and behavioral responses in science, it is almost similar to the effects of what drug abuse or drug use would have on the brain. And it leads to somehow, obviously, with the dopamine neurochemical in place, which is the part of the brain that wants reward systems really high up, it causes a lot of impulse discontrol. So when you look at this huge number of kids in the new generation or Generation Z, as they call it, highly impulse discontrol behaviors with a lot of instant gratification, right? So impatience, can't seem to wait their turn, sense of entitlement, and almost disengaged and disconnected. These are actual clinical terms that behavioral sciences have used to describe young adults or teenagers in this generation. and of course preoccupied and stressed with actual social media burnout or fatigue, as they've coined it. Second, mood. One would think that this connects us to people and it's a relaxing way of scrolling and liking and viewing, but it's actually determined that people who misuse or abuse social media too much actually have a sense of a depressed or irritable mood, lethargy, fatigue, and anxious. So we've noticed this in kids, when even kids are on their PSP and gaming a lot. Again, one would think it's a mindless activity and they're just playing a game, right? Or they're interacting and socially occupying themselves. But every kid, including my 10 and 12-year-old, if they've had more than 1 hour on any audio-visual stimulation, they get irritable after. I've always noticed that. The laptop or the phone goes away and there's actual kind of despondence and irritability after. So definite effects with mood and change that is akin to how the serotonin neurochemical in the brain gets affected. Addictiveness, right? I spoke about how it's addictive. So when you look at the behavioral manifestations, it's almost, like I said, like a drug. You want to rile up a teenager, take his phone away, right? I mean, I have many parents who will try everything. They'll try timeouts, taking away the phone or the iPad or whatever gizmos as a negative reinforcement. Kids go crazy, right? I've had teenagers and young adults who've actually physically assaulted their parents because the parent has tried to put certain restrictions or checks and balances with their social media use. There's constant checking. Kids and teenagers who are studying for exams, including board exams, feel that even if they've taken their phone and put it away or locked it up in a drawer, their mind and their focus is actually there. They get so highly distracted, or the need to get up and keep checking. So there's physical, physiological, and behavioral manifestations of actual addictiveness with withdrawal symptoms. It's really surprising to see how many of us, even as adults, get actual withdrawal symptoms when the social media is taken away. And we know that because a lot of people propagate and actually practice social media detox, as they call it, right? And you have adults like you and me saying the first 2, 3, 4 days is really, really hard. The fourth big problem that we're seeing neurocognitively is a huge decline with attention, concentration, focus, and actual mental alertness, almost akin to signs and symptoms of ADHD, which is your attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And this is not with children, it's both with children, teenagers, and adults. So when we've actually had cases of any of in this age group coming to us to seek help, there's actual reports and indications from companies and people who head large firms who actually get negative feedback from the HR department, actually listing these as problem areas. So it could be board meetings, it could be students in a class, but there's again distractibility, lack of attention, focus. As adults, we always have our phones with us. You can't engage in meaningful conversations and meetings. And of course, all this would impact productivity, right? As a student, you would not do well academically. And also, interestingly now, they are actually corroborating students to manifest with actual signs and symptoms of ADHD, like I mentioned, but also signs of dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia, which are actual learning disabilities when there is high usage of technology and social media. Lower interest levels, right? It's sad because people who are or do misuse social media are extremely, they can't read. Students have actually told me, and adults have told me, that they have forgotten how to read. And these are avid readers, people who've loved novels and perhaps gone through 2, 3 books in a week, who try and pick up a novel and a book or a magazine, and they feel that beyond a paragraph or beyond 2 pages, they can't go on. They've actually put the book down and gone straight back to the phone and gone back and logged on to social media. So huge lowered interest in hobbies, in reading, in sport, in outdoor activities, because like I said, like a drug, again, when you have a drug user or someone who's abusing drugs, this is exactly what happens to them too. They'd rather be holed up somewhere in a room with friends and smoke up or misuse the substance. Another impact that's really, really huge is self-concept, right? So under the umbrella of self-concept, you have your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-driven aspects of motivation, and it leads to huge amounts of peer pressure, right? So why would self-concept erode? And that's because of the absolute lack of frivolousness or the lack of reality that's showcased. Like you can have a warring couple who's just had a terrible fight and they are on a holiday destination and they've reached a beautiful site and for 2 seconds they've taken a selfie, smiled, and they've gone back to fighting. It's as ridiculous as that. And someone else who's viewing that beautiful, happy, loving, embraceful picture is saying, wow, I wish I was that happy couple, not even realizing that perhaps the couple's on a verge of a divorce, right? So, lot of these aspects, and this is in adults, it's in teenagers, it's constant comparison with body, with exercise routines, because here you have crazy, videos on Instagram that showcase, beauty, health, physiques, and there's a lot of then lowering in confidence, lowering in the concept of your body image, constant comparisons, and what teenagers love seeing, the fear of missing out, or FOMO as they call it. And the second aspect that affects this is relationships. You have no idea when we deal with couples, married couples, or even young adults in relationships, how dysfunctional relationships can get, or how social media can actually start affecting relationships, from fights, insecurities, infidelity, and we spoke about the impulse discontrol, and during lockdown, when we had really nothing to do and we were all just trapped in home, social media impulse discontrol and risk-taking behaviors had become so high that it was just absolutely amazingly shocking to hear the cases that we got at that time. We even ran a helpline at that time during those 2 years, and 80 to 90% of the callers were with stress regarding this, right? Because again, it's boredom, it's addictive, it's private, so there was a lot of infidelity, chatting, sex chats opening up, and it's like opening up a Pandora's box with regards to that during this time, which affects relationships. Another thing that's come up with relationships when we do counsel partners is the lack of emotional availability. The husband or wife says, I'm trying to talk to my partner, or him or her, to gauge my body language, or that I've had a low day today, or I've come back stressed at work, and my partner is actually looking down on the phone and scrolling away. Or you're trying to share something interesting, and again, there's disengagement and disconnection because you're more keen to go back or get back to what you've been scrolling at. Cyberbullying, right? It's really sad to know today what school children are going through. I run a school too, and mine's a tiny little school that deals with children with learning disabilities and ADHD kids. And even in that tiny little school, every 2 or 3 weeks, there's a small reported case of cyberbullying, from stalking to terribly negative and horrible statements and comments. Students, I don't know how they get, they may be challenged with other areas of academics, but when it comes to gizmos and technology, they create fake accounts. There's a lot of trolling, stalking, sexually inappropriate content that they put up there against their peers. And it's really, really a shameful thing to go through, because when it's on a public platform, you have no idea how sometimes even suicidal kids feel when this has happened to them. And we've had very drastic cases where even inappropriate pictures have perhaps been morphed or uploaded, and the victims, as young as even 12 or 13, have refused and not been able to go back to the educational institute or school that they've been part of. And of course, health, that we all know, right? From dry eye syndrome to poor posture to diabetes, lack of hygiene. I mean, all teenagers anyways have poor sleep cycles, right? So they are up till 2, 3 in the morning, so you're deprived of sleep, poor posture, cervical spine issues, headaches, and a lot of cases of severe vitamin D3 and B12 deficiencies, again, because there's lack of exercise, movement, right diet, and right sleep. So how does one mitigate or reduce these aspects, right? And I think the first step that I truly believe strongly in is incorporating these aspects of knowledge into school curriculums. I think every child, no matter what the age, needs to be cognizant and aware of these aspects, the pros and the cons, and all the ill effects of social media on life and mental health. So school and mental health curriculum awareness, reality-based experiences. I say this to every kid and every adult. Have real face-to-face conversations. Give a real handshake and a real hug. Praise someone with words and gestures. Actually enjoy the time of writing down a letter or a birthday card on an anniversary or a celebration. Meet people physically. Walk on grass. Go for a swim. Play a sport. Dance and move. Exercise. And of course, just understand that what you see is behind the screens. You don't know what the reality really is when you see a happy life or a beautiful photograph. It's virtual reality. That's why it's called virtual reality. It's not real reality. So that's what I just had to share, and hope this can help us too, because we are all, I mean, me too. I also go down through times when there are hours spent in a week on social media. Some of it is productive, let me tell you, but some of it is not. So that's my 2 bits. Thank you.